When I listen to all of you, it's very evident that this is a class of business people, all right? And it's not about me teaching you, it's about us teaching each other. Because, as long as you've already gone through that path and you have some understanding, it basically means you're really not coming to be taught on how to do it, but you're basically coming just to synergize or to be together with the rest of the team, and we see what ideas we can be able to pass. So ideally, when we are discussing in this teaching, basically what we're doing is basically getting more information that probably we could use back home with the groups that we lead, because Sammy is originally from Kenya. Bishop Sammy is originally from Kenya, but now he lives in Germany. And me and him will definitely agree on a lot of things, because coming from an African setup back in Africa is a bit different from here in the US or abroad here. And there are some things we have done, sometimes because of lack of knowledge or because of ignorance, that ended up messing us as ministers or as pastors. And therefore, as we talk in this class, I believe this is going to be very good for us to actually carry with us and go home. I may not get into so many details. I may not talk about the 7 streams. I may not talk about house, but I'm basically just going to lay a small foundation, because we have very little time. I mean, if you were to talk about business, we would probably need a whole seminar, whole days for that alone without talking about anything else. But here we're just trying to throw in something and, just challenge one another and show each other that there is need for that. One of the things I realized is when Jesus started looking for disciples, if you noticed, he was very intentional. You notice he did not just go picking anybody. You notice he went picking people, but when you look at the backgrounds of those people, they were either doing business or entrepreneuring in some way or professional in some way. Pick people like Matthew, he's a professional in the accountant field. Look, people like Peter. Peter was a businessman. Those days fishing was a major business. It was a major issue. Today maybe we may think about it and may not think much about it. He's just a fisherman. He was not just a fisherman. He was a businessman who owned his own boats, and he would go fishing and everything. So when he was picking them, he was extremely intentional. And that tells me a lot of things. The other thing is that you notice Jesus himself, from the age of the time he was born to the age of 30, he lived in the house of a businessman. His earthly father here, Joseph, was a businessman. So he had all the ethics, he had all the knowledge, he had all the things that had to do with business. And in his 3.5 years, one of the things you will notice about Jesus, as he kept on looking for people, ministering to people, he was very keen about some of these people who were in places of career. For example, you look at Zacchaeus, he goes to Zacchaeus. He's talking to him and he's telling him, come down, and then I'm going to be dining with you. And everybody's like, oh, how do you dine with this kind of a person? But listen, Zacchaeus also was a man who was handling money. He was a man who was in business. So there was something about Jesus and issues to do with business that were very important. One of the mistakes I did in my life, and I call it a mistake intentionally, is in 1993. Yeah, it was in 1993. I was just 1 year in marriage by then. Just gotten my firstborn son, Moses. I resigned from my job, and it was a big mistake. Today when I look at it, I consider it a big mistake. And why I considered it a big mistake is because the time I was resigning, being full-time in the ministry was the in thing. I mean, there was no way you're going to be in the secular job or you're doing something else and you are serving the Lord. Those things were not flowing together. No way. You had to be full-time. So I made the sacrifice, left a very good job. In terms of my background, I'm a medical engineer. I resigned. I was in charge of an entire district in our place. In fact, and I was sponsored by the German government. My program, by the way, was under the German program. That's how come I told you I was in Germany. So the guys who had sponsored me, they literally had to come looking for me, and they were thinking, are you crazy? Why? And then I remember telling my boss, it was another German guy, I told him it's because I want to go and serve the Lord. He couldn't understand that concept at all. So what happens is that I resigned, and my life just took another turn. I'm just 1 year in marriage. I have a little baby. A child, and I'm here. I've just left my job. I've left everything. I've gone to serve the Lord in full time. The next 3 before, and then on top of that, our church was extremely young. That's the other worst thing. And by then I was not even the senior pastor. I was actually the assistant pastor of the senior pastor. But because of that drive, I left the work, and the next 3, 4, 5 years were just hell. Yeah. I prayed all the prayers I could pray. I did that. I tell you, I did all the fasting, I did everything, and money just didn't come. Money did not understand that language. It didn't understand. So today, but thank God, and eventually the church grew, and finally the church was able to support me, and I continued, But today I don't advise. When I meet with young people like this, and he comes with a lot of fire and tells me, I want to go full time, I want to live, I tell him, slow down. Why? Because I understand if you go into full time and you don't have a foundation that is good, especially a financial foundation, you will be in a mess.